And welcome back to Jeff Kanange Live here at Citizen Television, talking about the takeover, handover, whatever you want to call it, of county number 047, Nairobi County. Dr. Alutalala Mukwana, Dr. Collins Odote, Dr. Alex Awiti, all of them talking about Nairobi going forward. Gentlemen, the day-to-day, who's going to run the day-to-day of this county?
The county government is not gone, Jeff. It is functions of the county government that have gone. But as our colleagues were saying here while we were taking a break, what has been happening? The government of Nairobi County has been on an autopilot. So the autopilot will continue. But the bulk, the nerve centers of the operations and the life and blood of the county government is what has gone to the national government. So in terms of the mess on the roads, the Matatu madness in town, in terms of the strikes by nurses in Pumwani the other day, threatened to strike because they have not been paid, look, that will be the work of the national government. So generally, you will see a level of normalcy, not because the national government is better. I mean, that's a debate for another day. But when you are faced with spending your time on the frying pan and the fire, you may even go into the fire hoping that it will not be as burning.
Actually, Jeff, I think the situation is going to be much better than it was 30 days ago. Nairobi County will be run by the national government.
Under a minister or CS or under what? Is there a supervisor?
I think that is where, in my view, that is where Eugene comes in.
It was actually given to him.
The reason why Eugene signed is that he's the one who's going to be in charge of coordinating the running of Nairobi. The shell will remain with the Sonko. So you will have the shell of paying a few people. The guys who do environmental management will be with him, the county assembly. And you will then soon start hearing conversations about, can these functions also be transferred to the national government? Because the nurses will be paid, but these guys in environment may not get their money. Remember, even revenue will be collected by KRA. Remember that the bulk of the staff will actually now be seconded to national government. So in my view, you will see much more of Eugene in charge of the running of Nairobi. So I think in terms of running, Nairobi government, for all intents and purposes, is now being run by national government.
What happens to the MCAs and the cabinet, Sonko's cabinet and those guys? Are they still there?
Well, I think they'll keep their jobs. But Jeff, as we said in the break, this presents an interesting opportunity for us to really begin to reimagine how we run our cities. If you look at the future of this country, it is urban. If you look at where jobs are created, where opportunity is built, where innovation is going to happen, it's in the cities. But the governance under the county structures for cities has been extremely inadequate. We don't even know, do you know the name of the city manager for Nairobi?
No.
Do you know where his office is?
No.
So who's in charge of city planning? We don't know that. And actually that's one of the other functions that has gone very quick to the national government. We have huge problems, but also huge opportunities in terms of reorganizing public transport, the public transit system. So I think that this is a bold step for us to start to reimagine this. I'm sure those who are dyed in the wool kind of adherents of devolution in its spirit will be perhaps aggrieved. But I think we need to step back and really understand what are the limits and what are the real strengths of devolution. Does it work for a majority kind of rural setting? And when you have these very complex urban environments, what is the right kind of governance structure? It could still be inside a county regime, but I think it should be isolated in a distinctive way to provide those unique functions and services that urban residents require, which also require a huge amount of revenue outlay in terms of public financing, which is way beyond what we might put out to support counties.
And Dr. Mukwana, to give Sonko his due, he had a huge vote, bigger than most people, or probably anyone in the country, huge numbers. And no one is demonstrating or protesting or doing anything, and they know this man's powers have been stripped. I mean, let's face it, had it been an ODM governor, my friend, there would be some stones being thrown right now.
Well, that will depend again on whether those stones are being thrown with the blessings of Baba. Because remember, the general has been consigned into exile, yet he was a general under ODM. Why hasn't there been a battle to rescue the general?
By the way, if the general had been the deputy right now, would he be governor? Or that's another story?
Of course, that was a joke. So the reason, Jeff, your question is, why is it that Nairobi is quiet, yet the most popular governor, going by the statistics of the votes, is his head is on the chopping board? Whereas there may be no one single answer for that. The first answer that comes to my mind is that, Jeff, we citizens of this country are robotic in our nature. That we vote depending on how we have been conditioned to vote. And therefore, when you say that Honorable Sonko got the largest number of votes, you may not attribute that to his character alone. It can be attributable to Polycarp Igathe, who was under him. It can be attributable to the tyranny of numbers of Jubilee, being predominantly the Kalenjin and the Agikuyu and their brothers and sisters who support them. It is not easy to place your finger on one indicia that says this is why he got it. But number two, if Mheshimiwa Sonko rose and said, gentlemen and ladies of Nairobi, you voted for me, and I think I'm being frustrated, and he funds the activity, yes, you may see a number of people on the street. So the problem we have in this country is that most of the things we do, particularly in terms of politics, you are either responding to a call by your tribal kingpin, or you are responding to a war cry by a community that is under siege. So we are robotic. Today, if Honorable Sonko funds enough, I doubt he has, his accounts have been frozen. But if he came out and funded a demo, I mean, you saw how he was protected when he went to the ESCC for his grilling. Yeah. Gunshots rent the air. It is not for nothing. You have to mobilize funds and mobilize people. He is down. He cannot dare raise his finger now, because as we said, there were 1, 2, 3 assaults aimed at him. Only one has been utilized. So he cannot dare mobilize people in his support.
Dr. Odote, you're looking a little doubtful there.
No, actually, I don't even think that he can't mobilize. I think Governor Sonko can mobilize. The only issue is, what is the motivation for organizing? This is to his benefit. Because if he organizes, he's then saying, I would rather be impeached.
Right.
This, in my view, as I said a few minutes ago, enables him to be able to continue enjoying the perks of government, or being the county. But number two, it actually enables him to start having a relationship with President Uhuru Kenyatta again. I don't want to go as far as Mukwana's BBI's salvation, but I think it enables him to be able to then get back into the mainstream of that kind of politics. But the other thing that I think...
Which one, Doc?
Come to me, all you are.
I think...
But you would rather not mention it.
No, I think the reality is that there's the politics of the alignment for 2022.
Yeah.
And you are either this side or the other side. Yeah. And I think this provides that, look, I have played ball in this, so I can actually, you can actually trust me to play ball, and realize that despite all these things, Governor Sonko is both a consummate politician, but also an asset to a political machine, because he has the networks with the grassroots. He's not the guy who will be seeing only on TV. In terms of connection to the grassroots, he still has that, so politicians will require him.
So what you're trying to say is, you'd rather him on your side of the Jubilee divide than the other side. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, except that you must be careful that if you have him too close, then he will do the thing he did in 2017. Because they had him too close, then they thought they would keep him out. They couldn't. So now the tragedy is that if you do the same mistake you did, you'll find him in a second term as governor. But the other thing that I wanted to raise is something that Awiti spoke about. You know, if you look at the BBI report, one of the things that the BBI report said is that Nairobi city should actually be managed differently. So we should have a county assembly, but not a county executive. And I think this provides us an opportunity of doing two things. A, having a robust conversation on what that really means, but number B, take those things. Because we now have a county assembly, but for all intent and purposes, we don't have a county executive. So that we can have a model for managing Nairobi, which both respects its status as a city, but at number 2, gives the people of Nairobi an opportunity of enjoying the benefits of devolution. So providing that balance, I think this is the perfect opportunity.
So, governors in other 46 counties, is this setting a dangerous precedent? Are they quaking in their boots right now, Dr. Wheaton?
I think, as Governor Mutua said today, which was kind of interesting, because I've heard in the grapevine that Sonko was probably not interested in Nairobi anymore and might be eyeing Machakos. But he said Governor Sonko brought this upon himself. So I think governors have a sense of, yes, there are certain things that you can do that are not acceptable to the dominant political structures, and there will be repercussions, there will be consequences. I think we've seen many governors teetering on the brink of catastrophic removal. We have Obado, we have the governor of Homa Bay, for instance, who has a lot of things swelling over his head. We talked about Charity Ngilu. So there's a bunch of governors who might actually be watching this very carefully.
Jeff, I come from Homa Bay, and I'm in some professional group that I rarely contribute. But one of the things I saw yesterday, someone saying is, why have they done this to Nairobi? They should have done this to Homa Bay 4 years ago. So forget governors quacking. There's going to be a lot of citizens making the statement that when our governor is not performing, let's not just talk about impeaching. Let's tell the national government to do what they did, to do in Nairobi on our county. So I think that this is going to be a conversation across the rest of the county.
It's going to reverberate across the nation. Dr. Mukwana, Governor Ngilu has just messaged me, and she wants to know, what impeachment is Dr. Mukwana talking about? I've never heard of it.
Is she the stranger in Jerusalem who doesn't know that Christ the Lord has risen? I have no more answer to her.
On that note, wait a minute. Tweets are coming in very thick and very fast. Let's get to them as Governor Ngilu contemplates her move. Interesting stuff. All right. Amy Stacy says, why did Wamalwa receive functions that are not assigned to him? Why was public participation not done prior to the takeover? The sovereignty of the people of Nairobi has not been factored in. We talked about that, didn't we?
Yes,
putting the cart before the horse sort of thing.
You were strong on that.
Right. Basically, it was done, and we'll discuss it later, but it's like BBI.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It was decided.
Palliative treatment comes later.
All right. Jere says, national government just did what it has always wanted to do, to undermine and defeat the will of the people. Wow. The judiciary has directed Sonko not to execute the functions of his office until he is cleared. Why was he signing?
Double standards.
Yeah,
his arm was twisted, wasn't it?
Yeah, so we should now wait to hear whether DPP will go and say that he's violated the conditions of his bail. Because he's been saying that anytime governors try doing something.
He actually moved to court.
Yes, Isaac says, Jeff, when did Nairobi become a private property, whereby two people sit down and make a decision on behalf of millions of people? The proposal ought to have been deliberated by the Assembly and subsequently approved and Cabinet to make it legal.
That's been my point all along. If we wanted to ensure that we are dealing with a corporate entity, that would have been the perfect way. Have the national government discuss the cabinet, have the county assembly discuss the cabinet. Then it would have been, because the reality is nobody is contesting this move.
Yeah. Because Dr. Mukwana, you say it is still legal. I mean, it's a legal move.
Largely, yes.
It is largely.
Largely, yes, it is. It is not as neat as it ought to be.
Right.
And I think my brother is right because he's going for the neatness.
Yeah.
There are rough edges. But as I said, contextualize this action, juxtapose it with the BBI, and accept that that's how things are done.
It is politically correct.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. It is not legally correct.
Oh, okay.
It's not legally exact.
Yes, it's not legally. Thank you. I think that's
Morimi says Nairobi County takeover takes effect on 17th of March 2020, but the planned public participation. BBI rallies are over-popularizing a document and at the same time collecting views about the same document.
Indeed.
Who bewitched Kenyans?
Thank you.
That's what you said.
Thank you.
Who bewitched us? Oh, you can't make this stuff up. Mzee Kibor, patron, says, how come Nairobi, with all learned, exposed and rich fellows, went on ballot and voted for Mike Sonko while Pokots voted for Professor Loyanga Poor? and his neurosurgeon deputy governor. Who do we blame? You get what you pay for, right?
Yes.
Or do you get what you deserve?
But that presumes, Jeff, that the outcome was in sync with the contents of the server.
No, but maybe, Jeff, the rich people went to Pokot to vote.
There you go. Yeah. Paul Malaya says, what is happening to law and order in this republic? What precedent are we continuing to set? What was the point of devolution and separation of functions?
Valid question.
What was the point of devolution? You're the one who said, Dr. Wita, is this the beginning of the end of devolution?
Not necessarily. I think devolution is something that Kenyans have come to love. And I think to a very large extent it works. But if you go by the 2019 census, devolution has a long way to go to raise the standards of living for the majority of Kenyans.
Dr. Odote,
yeah.
Devolution, beginning of the end.
Jeff, I don't think it's the beginning of the end. Because trying to get rid of devolution, you need to get rid of the constitution first, not just a provision, because the one part that Kenyans actually benefit from is devolution. I actually think devolution...
As unrefined as it is, as imperfect as it is.
Jeff, I was in Turkana in January. And the one place that shows you the benefits of devolution is Turkana. You see the changes that has happened. The roads, the infrastructure, the hotels that are there. I think with all its imperfection, devolution is working. I've actually made the point that even corruption demonstrates that devolution is working. Before, we would hear people from Nairobi going to steal in Pokot. Now who is going? Lonyangapuo goes there. So if there must be theft, he is in it. I come from Homa Bay. We complain in Homa Bay. But we're no longer complaining about Mwangi, who is the town clerk sent to Homa Bay. We are complaining about people that we elected. So for me, devolution works with its imperfections. In December, a colleague of mine took their daughter to Homa Bay District, Homa Bay County Hospital. They couldn't find facilities. They had to go to Kisii. And the guys of Kisii said, no, you guys are spending too much of our facilities. Go back to Homa Bay. You then realize, these guys, their hospital is functioning, ours is not. Jeff, I think that this was not done to kill devolution, despite everything people say. I think this was, it was a need, but it was done to try and save the mess of Nairobi.
Dr. Mukwala?
I agree on that one. I agree.
100%.
Yeah, I agree because, as we said, you see, when Honorable Sonko is handled the way he's being handled, it must also be seen in the context of saving an already bad situation for the city. And I do not think that it's a threat to devolution. If anything, the threat to the devolution should be the corruption that is endemic, both, of course, in the national government and the county government. Right. But devolution, Jeff, you not take it away from Kenyans. First of all, it is the anchor in the Constitution of 2010, but most importantly, and I beg to use these terms, that even with its imperfection, there is a lot you can see. And that is why, Jeff, the late Mzee Moi used to say, don't complain too much. We are better than Somalia. So yes, we may not be where we're supposed to be, but we are better than we were. And therefore the citizenry cannot even fathom the idea of devolution being taken away. We'll plod on, but devolution will have to stay.
All right. Thank you very much for that. Dr. Odote, give us your closing remarks. Moving forward, what does this say about this country where we are right now?
I think moving forward, what this for me says about this country is our fidelity to the Constitution is still suboptimal. I think we are reaching a stage where the end justifies the means. And that's a dangerous situation. Because then, even when you do the right things, you forget the rules. That ensures that you set a precedent where tomorrow you can do the wrong things and ignore the rules, and we should get out. The second thing that I would like to say in terms of closing, I think there is need for us to rethink how we vote. Because this problem of Nairobi is a problem that we could have foreseen. Anybody knew that electing Governor Sonko to be governor, in all honesty, was a fundamental mistake. We are paying for our sins 2 years down the road.
It was an accident waiting to happen.
And we went into it with our eyes open.
Eyes wide open. Dr. Witi, you get the final word.
I think this is a fundamental stress test for the Constitution, as I said earlier. it gives us a very interesting opportunity to reimagine how the two governments would function, especially when you have a crisis that requires that the national government steps in to handle an emergency or an emerging crisis in the governance of a devolved unit. And I think in many ways it also presents us with a learning opportunity. It's a teachable moment. As we observed earlier, we don't have the regulations to govern that would support or regulate the processes of transferring the powers. There are provisions under Section 29 of the Intergovernmental Relations Act, but those have not been specified. And that's why in the very broad outlines of this, it is within the legal structures. It is not outside the law, but it still requires fundamental fine-tuning of the elements that would then create the exactness and the precision in law to then respond when we have situations like this. But I think fundamentally it shows that the national government can respond. They can step up to take charge when we have a crisis.
Well, you guys at the university level, will you be teaching this subject for a long time to come? Is this a precedent-setting moment?
It is.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is, Jeff. This is something that I think students are going to be talking about. In fact, I am sure this is my column for next week. This is something to be writing on.
For me, Jeff, I think the son of Jomo has demonstrated that when he really wants something done, he gets it done. If anybody doubted that he can have things done, just watch his body language, watching over Sonko signing that document. He needs to replicate this on other national issues, which went unattended for his entire first term. And now we're wondering, why did he do this? But now we know he can do it, so let him do it.
Dr. Alutawala Mukwana, Dr. Collins Odote, Dr. Alex Awiti. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Great conversation. Doctor. And thanks so much for tuning in to the Daktari edition. Except on this side. No.
Daktari without meat.
You're the Daktari.
I'm Daktari.
Daktari is a Daktari.
Nice. Thanks so much for tuning in, folks, and for tweeting, and keep tweeting at Koinange Jeff, at Citizen TVK. The hashtag is JKLive. Remember, every Wednesday, those 3 letters on the keyboard that follow each other. JKLive. Thanks so much for being a part of this show, folks. Good night, good luck. God bless this wonderful nation of ours and this beautiful county, number 47.
Thanks very much.